Hi, I'm Alex from the Wildlife Center of Virginia. During the spring months, aka baby season for many native species here, you might come across a young bird that's fallen from its nest. It's completely normal and natural for young birds that are learning to fly and eventually become independent from their parents to spend an extended amount of time on the ground. Sometimes for just a few days, but sometimes up to 4 weeks, depending on the species. And in some situations, those birds aren't in need of rescuing at all. During this video, we'll be covering some common scenarios you might find yourself in this spring, how to tell if intervention is needed, and what to do. If you come across a baby bird on the ground that appears to be unable to fly, the very first thing to do is look for obvious signs of injury. Open or actively bleeding wounds, broken bones, confirmation that it's been in a cat or a dog's mouth, or if it's covered in fly eggs, which look similar to small grains of rice. These are times when direct intervention is appropriate. Contact your local permitted wildlife rehabilitator for instructions and rescue advice. In the meantime, do not give the bird any food or water. Nutritional requirements for baby birds are very specific, and their chances of survival dramatically decrease if they're fed before receiving professional treatment. Evaluate whether or not the bird is fully feathered. Any fully feathered baby bird found on the ground, even if it's seemingly unable to fly, is likely just fledging, a natural state of development in the bird's life, when it's normal for them to be on the ground as they learn to fly and forage for food. One or more of the parents will continue to feed and protect them during this period. Sometimes it can be pretty easy to tell and evaluate whether or not a bird is fully feathered. Sometimes it can be pretty difficult. This is an example of what a fledgling bird might look like. So this bird is fully feathered. Even if you see a bird that looks like this on the ground, seemingly unable to fly, if it's uninjured, chances are mom and dad are still pretty close by in the area protecting and feeding this young bird. The best way to help this individual animal would be to leave the area. Make sure pets and kids are not nearby, because mom and dad will not provide care for it in the presence of humans. You can leave it alone. Bye-bye. Here's another example where it's probably pretty easy to tell the difference between a fully and not fully feathered bird. This would be considered a hatchling. And most of us would recognize the youngest baby birds in this phase of their development and their life cycles. Almost no feathers, eyes are closed, they're pretty weak, sometimes don't hold their heads up on their own. They might respond to noises or your movements close by, but otherwise, these are pretty helpless young animals. So these birds, again, if they're uninjured, make sure they're warm to the touch by holding them in your hands for a few minutes and just place them back into the nest. Lovely. Myth: bird parents will be frightened off by human scent. That's not true. Most birds really don't have a very well-developed sense of smell. Fact: bird parents will not provide care for baby birds if they're cold to the touch. Returning a cold baby bird to its nest can cause the parent to push it back out in an effort to protect the other eggs or other young. To prevent this, all that's required is to warm the bird in your hands before placing it back in the nest. This one might be a little more tricky to evaluate whether or not it's fully feathered, because we can see that there is some feather growth. However, you'll notice that there are these feather shafts where the feathers are not yet have not yet fully emerged. So even though this bird might have a lot of feathers, the feathers that are present probably aren't insulating very well. They're not very protective. So in this case, if this individual would be uninjured, again, making sure that it's warm to the touch, you can place it back into the nest. But if you're ever in doubt, because it can be pretty tricky, different species of birds develop and grow at different rates, they all look different from one another, you can take pictures, leave the area, and contact your local permitted wildlife rehabilitator for further assistance and instructions. Ooh. If you can find the nest, simply put the bird back. If the baby bird is uninjured but has just a few or no feathers and you can't find the nest or you can't reach it, it needs a new one for protection and eventually to be reunited with its parents. You can make one using common materials that are probably already in your household. Birds can be renested in a variety of materials, really depending on what you have available to you on hand. So for example, you can repurpose old cardboard boxes, you can use plastic containers that you keep your pens or whatever your junk drawer tends to be full of. But it's important that you try as best you can to have it be a shape and size similar to the original nest, because the baby bird or birds should be able to fit snugly within that nest and remain warm and dry at the same time. So for the insulating materials, again, our intention is to replicate the natural nest as best we can. So we are not as good at building and constructing nests as mama and dada birds are, but we can try to use some of the same materials that they might have found in whatever area you have found this bird in the first place. Dried grasses, evergreen pine needles, maybe even dried leaves if that's all you have available to you. Again, the intention is to make sure that that baby bird is snug and fits well in there. If you are using a container as a substitute nest that has a solid bottom to it, be sure to poke some holes so that way water will be able to drain out and that bird will remain warm and dry until mama comes back. So as I'm constructing my nest here, again, my intention is to make it seem like the natural nest as much as I can. Now, so for this hypothetical situation, we were unable to find the original nest. So we're taking our best guess based on what we think the species is and the size of the baby bird itself. So I've chosen this plastic container that formerly was used to hold name tags and pens, but I think it's a good option. It looks like a good size and shape to fit a bird. Also, it's got some good points to attach it to the tree, which we'll see in a little bit. So I'll start off lining with some larger evergreen pine needles. Ooh. And my goal with these needles is to make a bit of a ring around this outer edge, kind of a frame for the softer insulating materials we'll add in next. Actually, that looks pretty good. So next we'll use some of this dried grass that we foraged just from around the area in our natural environment. I'll kind of try to distribute it the best I can, making a shallow dish, kind of like a bowl for the baby bird to sit right in the center of. That way he can be surrounded on all sides from the elements, from the wind, from the rain, have something comfy and cozy to snuggle up to. I think also using naturally foraged materials is probably beneficial in a little bit of protection from predators. It might help to camouflage the nest and make it just a little bit less obvious. Great. We're ready to attach it securely to our replacement tree. So the method and the materials we'll use to attach our replacement nest to a tree, again, it depends on what you have available to you, what's available in your immediate vicinity. We have these bungee straps that sometimes we use to secure cargo and stuff in the back of our vehicles. Really is pretty great for this purpose because they're adjustable. We know that they can be secured, and they got those great plastic hooks on either end. Oh, yes. Now, when you are placing a replacement nest and attaching it securely to a tree, you might want to go the extra mile. Use a couple of bungee cords if you have access to more, because again, we want to make sure that our baby bird is nice and comfortable and safe, but mom and dad have to feel secure too. Imagine a bird, even though they're small, perching on the edge of your nest. You want to make sure that that doesn't shake too much, that the wind and the sun and the rain won't disturb that natural parenting behavior. I'd sit in there. That looks nice. Hopefully watching this video was able to give you a better understanding of the basics about knowing when it's best to leave a grounded baby bird alone versus when it's time to intervene. In many situations though, the best course of action depends on your specific circumstances. So if you're ever in doubt, give the Wildlife Center of Virginia or your local permitted wildlife rehabilitator a call. And don't forget to visit our website for more in-depth information on this topic, including our I Found a Baby Bird flowchart infographic that you can really easily save to any smartphone's camera roll so that you can have these steps in your pocket and at your fingertips this spring. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, leave a comment, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay up to date on our newest videos. Bye! Oh. Is this what YouTube wants? Is this what gets likes on YouTube? No. This mask just broke.